Camus' novel brings us through an arc of emotional experience, which I think we can identify with. We start with disbelief. People think this can't possibly be happening to me. This must be something only happening to others. That's followed by panic, the desire to escape, bursts of false optimism of cures or ways to get out, the search for meaning in statistics, finally, the grim acknowledgement, a sense of living life in an eternal, flattened, unchanging present, as though there were no future and no outside world. But in the end, final parts of the novel, we have the disbelief followed by jubilance when the plague finally ends. Although the novel suggests in many ways that coming out of lockdown, coming out of a plague, is in many ways an emotionally difficult experience that we should prepare ourselves for. Although at the end of the novel, the plague is finished and there's celebrations on the streets, the last lines are ambiguous in their tone. So the plague has ended. There's the sounds of joy outside. People are celebrating, and this is how the novel ends. As he listened to the cries of joy rising from the town, Rieux remembered that such joy is always imperiled. He knew what those jubilant crowds did not know, but could have learned from books, that the plague bacillus never dies or disappears for good, that it can lie dormant for years and years in furniture and linen chests, that it bides its time in bedrooms, cellars, trunks, and bookshelves, and that perhaps the day would come when, for the bane and the enlightening of men, it would rouse up its rats again and send them forth to die in a happy city. So why this note of apparent pessimism at the end? I'm not sure it is pessimistic, in fact. For Camus, his imaginary plague was a way of investigating aspects of what we might call the human condition. Death is always present. There's no getting around it. You can't escape from it. Knowing that this is the case, knowing that death is there, that death is the condition of life, forces us into the reality of life, into the reality of the present. We get a heightened vision when death becomes so perceptible and close. We get a heightened vision of the way life is and the ways in which we are connected to other people. So in that sense, strange as it is to say, the novel is a celebration of life. And in fact, one of the many things that the book is a snapshot of life amongst the French community in Oran. When everything stands still, things that we previously don't bother to notice become suddenly visible. This, I think, is one of the reasons why we find detective fiction so appealing. It's not the story of the murder that takes up most of a detective story, but rather the investigation of ordinary routines. So the ordinary round of life, what time people get up, how they go to work, what time they come home, what time they take a nap. These ordinary things in detective fiction have to be investigated, combed over, and scrutinized. So the murder, whose investigation occasions this investigation of people's routines, is a way to make life more visible in all its detail. The ordinary round of life, which is something that is usually automatic, not perceptible, becomes suddenly very important and very visible. In other words, and this is something that I think the disease does in Camus' novel, death has the effect, the presence of death has the effect of re-enchanting life. In other words, the plague in this novel is a concentrated version of the condition of life itself, which is that it does, sooner or later, at a moment we don't know, come to an end. This is the source of the existentialist idea that life is absurd, that it can always be ended. As the novel itself says, everyone has it inside themselves, this plague, because no one in the world, no one is immune. But this is not a pessimistic idea. If we accept our powerlessness and accept the unknown nature of the trajectory of our lives, it will make our lives more vivid and more rich. There is no safety. There is nowhere we can escape to, but this is something that should comfort us, first of all, and also, in our dealings with one another, make us softer and kinder.